I'm not kidding.
All right. Hey, good morning. So we got a new setup in here today. So welcome to Product Coffee. Glad you're here with us. Hey, everybody. If you're joining us out on YouTube, glad you could be here with us. If you don't already get the announcements, jump over to our website at productcoffee.com, sign up as a free subscriber, and you'll get announcements for all of our weekly sessions, and you can join us here in the Zoom meetup as well. This is a, excuse me, we'll edit that out. This isn't a typical webinar. If this is your first time at Product Coffee, this is not a typical webinar. This is a virtual meetup, and we're going to talk to each other. We're going to welcome everybody up on the stage here who wants to be on the stage and be part of this. But let's get started. So David Dean is the author of An Inbox Between Us, and he spends his time helping enterprise leaders separate AI reality from AI mythology. And after nearly 20 years navigating complex organizations, he's learned that the most interesting thing about automation isn't the technology, it's the human behavior it exposes. Now, David, before we get into the book itself, we'll talk about that later. You said something when we were preparing for today that felt just provocative enough to stick with me. You said that writing and launching a book is really a form of product management. Now, so that's a pretty dangerous thing to say in a room full of product managers, because we know what comes next. It's you start talking about trade-offs and compromises and launch decisions, and that you second guess later on. But as you were writing your book, An Inbox Between Us, how did that idea take shape for you, and how did it influence the way you approach the book?
Yeah, so I had been doing this not realizing I was writing the book over an extended period of time, because this book is a compilation of digital journals. As I've been a professional as a solutions architect and consultant for many years at that point, and moving into the AI realm, I was like, how do I explain this to people? So I was writing my own notes, like, well, how do I explain it to myself? And I'm a very practical person and very realistic. So I was like, how can I make this real? And so I was just over like a year and a half, I had this accumulation of my personal opinions and thoughts around all of this. And uh, and then I started looking at like kind of what's being put out there relating to AI and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, there is something here that needs to be told. People need to hear this. And I float around the idea of putting together a book. I've never written a book at all with it. And essentially at this point it was kind of a collection of white papers if you really want to think about it. And I'm like, I think people need to gravitate to something around reality when it comes to AI. So I decided to pull the trigger and start making it happen, and organizing, putting it together. I had to write a bunch of additional material relating to it, but I really had most of the concepts figured out. In fact, I had to cut out a bunch of stuff of it because I had too much content. So, and that's kind of where it got me started, and then started diving into the world of, you know, launching a book.
Mm-hmm. So, and as that, so very clearly, you identified what you perceive to be a gap in the market, and so this
Yeah.
is something that needs to be filled. Um,
Yep.
yeah, you had your possibilities of ways to solve it. Tell me more about that. So, how did, as you went about going through the process, as you were
Mhm.
going through the process, what are some of the things that kind of went through your mind as you started to identify it more as more of a product development, product management process? What are the trade-offs that you started thinking about?
Yeah, I think I knew who my audience was going to be, um, but I didn't want to ignore other audiences as a part of this. And so I had found that I had to consistently reevaluate the message and material throughout the entire process to stay focused on that audience, with it. And but I also um, I also had constraints. It was a little bit different for me in comparison because I'm publishing a nonfiction book, out there relating to a material, and I also had to research a bunch of things like, I want to make myself unique. I want to make the voice unique relating to this, and so I wanted to isolate myself and isolating the message with it, and once I kind of identified what that is and going through that transition with it, then I needed to organize how I needed the delivery. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what did I wanted to get from A to B to C as a part of this? The outcome. What is the summer like? Bringing it all together. What does
Mm-hmm.
that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What are people going to walk away with? But then I also had real constraints because I wrote this independently of my current employer right now, with it. So this is all me, it has nothing to do with anybody I'm affiliated with. And so there are constraints that I had to figure out. Like, I cannot include certain things in this because of that. So then there's certain stuff that I was not able to include in the content that I may have wanted to include as a part of this. But really, most of the content was focused on like this thought process,
Mm-hmm.
of how I want to deliver, because my goal was the message.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to get the message out to people, and I was able to be, in my opinion, successful crafting that message and getting it put into the pages as a part of this. So, but it was interesting as I was finishing up the book. I'm like, oh, I'll just write the book. I'll put all this stuff together and I'll organize it. Then I start getting into the craft, of
Mm-hmm.
that, of it. And I think the hardest thing is when I had to make some hard choices of this, because the investor is in all reality myself, or
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say my spouse. I was like, honey, I want to do this, but we're going to have to make some hard choices because I'm going to need money to make this happen, with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked it out, and but then that money only goes so far. And this is more how I learned about the business of writing and delivering a book with it. And so you kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to do before you from your whole launch plan with
Mm-hmm.
it. So um, I made some sacrifices in the book in order to focus on what mattered to me the most, which is marketing and the message. And that's where most of my focus and funding went to, is to be able to get that message out. And but I had to sacrifice certain capabilities in the book in order to be able to make that happen. I do want to come back and correct some of those things with it, but you sometimes just have to make those hard decisions based on what you have available to you.
So you're already thinking about a second edition or a 2.0 if you want to
Right.
align it to software development. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I'm very happy with. as I said, the messaging and the content with it. I think the mechanics, because like, for example, editing, that's part of the issue where like, I'm not the best editor in the world relating to this. And especially it being a book of a bunch of journals,
Hmm.
writing and speaking are really two different things when it comes to delivery with this. So the book a lot of times sounds like like me kind of having a conversation with people, which is kind of the goal that I wanted to, but the writing mechanics are very different when someone's physically reading it. So I would like to eventually come back and kind of restructure, not
Hmm.
change the content, just restructure some of the language so it's easier to consume. However, I do have an audiobook version coming out, and it'll be interesting on how well that's received based on how it's currently written.
Yeah, that will be really interesting. I saw you saw that you mentioned that in kind of our prep thread there.
Yeah.
I want to encourage. We got quite a few people jumping into the Zoom meetup right now. I want to encourage you. Please turn your cameras on. Love you to be here in the room with us, and we're going to give you an opportunity to say hey and introduce yourself in just a moment. Would love to hear who's with us, what has your attention this morning. We're going to stick with David here for a couple more minutes before we get over to that. So, without giving away too much, David, about the details in the book, because we're gonna get into that in a minute, and we're gonna
Mhm.
talk about the book club as well in just a minute.
Mhm.
But speaking as a product manager, um, what is there anything that you shipped that you kind of regret shipping, or are there some things that you cut that you wish you'd kept?
Yeah, so the my cover, while I liked my cover, as a part of it, uh, a lot of people didn't connect with it as
Mm,
much. And so I'm actually planning a cover update,
okay.
with this because I have a number of endorsements that I want to include as a part of this, and I've decided that I'm going to reinvent the cover that kind of more closely aligns with the theme of the book versus what I initially had with it. So that's one thing as a part of it. Um, and because covers sell books
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. But as I said, I think I'm going to have more success from the audiobook aspect because a lot of people like to listen to nonfiction
Mm-hmm.
audio versus physically reading a lot of times. The other aspect is that I had to cut some implementation and framework methodologies out of the book, and just because of dynamics as part of from a workplace standpoint, like that was one thing that came up. It's like, how can I take action as a part of these steps with it? And that's really was secondary to me. It was more of a state of frame of mind is what I was hoping relating to this,
Mm-hmm.
and get people kind of conditioned. And uh, but I would have loved to be able to apply some of these things. However, I do have an editorial book review came out and by the Independent Book Review on Monday, and she perfectly captured. She's like, even though it doesn't have some common framework steps that you see in a lot of business books. A lot of what David's talking about is common sense and
Mm-hmm.
it's highly relatable. You don't really need it because you already know it,
Mm.
essentially, with it. And so she's like, even though it doesn't have that, it didn't really need it.
Mm.
So which I thought was actually a really good insight as a part of this. And so those are some of the things that I kind of wish I'd been able to do.
Very cool. That's great. Yeah, and that's great validation on the choices that you made. So
Mhm.
so market validation, or at least some customer validation. Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
absolutely.
keep tying it all back. So I want to thanks for being here with us today. I'm really looking forward to getting into the book. We're gonna talk in a few minutes about our next book club reading, which is An Inbox Between Us. Where and Allison will talk about that in a few minutes. But before we get into that. We have got a growing number of folks here in our virtual meetup here on Zoom. Would love, if you're on YouTube, would love you to be joining us in Zoom as well. Head over to productcoffee.com sign up as a free subscriber or join as an insider or a premium member. And we would love to have you join us in the Zoom meetup so that you can get to know us directly and spend some time with David and Allison and the whole crew here. Got quite a few people in here. Want to ask some folks to introduce yourselves and tell us today. And what I'll do is I'll just, if your camera's on, I'll specifically call you out and invite you. And if your camera isn't on and you want to talk anyway, just go ahead and raise your virtual hand in Zoom, and we'll pull you up here to the front, even if we can't see you. I know a lot of people are running around taking care of kids in the morning and so on and so forth. But I'm going to start out with Stephen Ricks. Hey, Stephen, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell everybody, who you are, where you are, and what has your attention this morning.
Sure. Hey, I am Stephen Ricks. I'm the director of product at SecureGive. We do church donation management solutions. And honestly, what has my attention this morning is trying to prepare for our upcoming deployment and everything rolling. But I needed a break and needed a brain break, so I'm here.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to the next book club, though, so I'm excited for this chat this morning.
Very cool. Yeah, you've been pretty active in our book club, haven't you?
Trying.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Well, it's good to see you this morning. Let's see. Kim Proctor, welcome back. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting all of us, even if we are not a paid member, so thank you. My name is Kim Proctor. I am a senior product manager by experience. I have been working online since 1999 and loving, what the web is and what it could do and what it can be for product. I mean, I've loved it for decades now. And so I'm just interested to see where AI is going for products, like for small to mid-sized businesses, because I'm not a big business person. And so I'm just trying to figure out what is the next tool I should really try to master. I mean, ChatGPT I've had since the beginning, and it's still useful. But which of the other ones should I be doing? And so I just like being a part of this group because you never know what you're going to hear.
Yep.
So thank you.
And there are about as many. There's an exponential number of opinions on which you ought to be using compared to the ones that are available. I think there's expressions about how many people have opinions, and there are lots of them out there. And would love to hear, as part of our discussion today, if you've got some war stories, if you found something new, that you're really excited about, that you'd like to share with us, please do that. And we will continue to get some folks in here to introduce themselves. Let's see who's up next. I see a lot of folks with their cameras off. Come on and join us. Don't be scared. Let's say hello to Flint. Hi, Flint. Welcome to Product Coffee. Well, I see. You're going to have to come off mute. There you
Probably
go.
an important step. Hey there. Yeah. Great to be here. Thanks for having us. I am the Vice President of Engineering at Frequency.media. And what's on my mind, I actually spent all day yesterday really racking my brain and researching this, but I'm researching and writing a manifesto on what the product or software development lifecycle looks like with AI and how it impacts each and every one of the steps. So I'm writing that and figuring it out. And once I have it figured out, I'm excited to be able to share that with the world.
I am looking forward to hearing more about that and seeing that. And I know that you've been thinking about that for quite a bit lately. We've had a few conversations along the way that I'm looking forward to hearing more about where you're arriving. So we'll definitely love to have you back here as a guest when you get that ready to speak about.
I'll be glad to share it with everybody involved here. I'll pass it along.
Awesome. Thanks, Flint. Good to see you. Let's see here. Who's up next? Who have we not heard from in a little while? Let's say hi to John. Hey, John DeBosch. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jason.
Welcome back.
I'm John DeBush. I'm an independent product advisor in Minnesota. I like to help tech-enabled manufacturers to grow from a plateaued state back to a path of being an innovator in their space. And the thing that's got my attention lately is I've been using AI, like Kim said, for quite a while. I feel pretty comfortable with it, but I'm trying today to implement a self-learning loop to get it to actually learn from what it did, to evaluate its own output and iterate its way. So I have to do less manual intervention along the way.
What are you using to what are you implementing with?
I'm using Claude Code
Okay.
frequently, but I do often jump to one of the others, a Gemini or Perplexity or ChatGPT
for your
to compare and contrast.
For your self-learning loop, are you using like a Ralph Wiggum type of a approach, or what approach are you taking?
I'm experimenting right now. If you've got ideas, I'm open to hearing what's out there.
Cool. Absolutely.
I've heard of Ralph Wiggum, but don't know it intimately.
So in a nutshell, Ralph Wiggum is it's a plugin for Claude Code, and it's based on a character from The Simpsons named Ralph Wiggum. And the whole thing is it just does these loops. So it's not so much, it's not self-learning as it is completion of a goal. And but if your goal is to learn and develop an understanding, there's kind of a similar parallel concept, but it essentially builds a failing test, goes and does something, and and continues iterating until the test passes. Clairvaux had a podcast this last week or 2 weeks ago where she was talking about Codex, the OpenAI parallel to Claude Code, and they have introduced a feature called goals, which seems to be so it's more native than the Ralph Wiggum in Claude Code, which requires a plugin or at least some teaching and skill development. It's kind of a native functionality in Codex where you literally assign a goal and tell it this is what a good outcome looks like, and it'll go off for hours and loop around on that as well.
Nice.
I don't know if anybody else has other ideas, but good to see you back. And
good to be here.
Let's. I see Blossom's got her hand up. Blossom, good to have you back. Say hello.
Hi everyone. Sorry, can't put on my camera right now. I'm doing a lot right now, but it's good to be here. I'm a product manager with over 5 years of experience, and I'm currently working as a consultant for a couple of companies, helping them with leads, with defining or bettering their lead quality through digital marketing. What has caught my attention right now? So one of my clients has ChatGPT, the premium version, and I was just able to tell ChatGPT to do research on our competitors. I put in the information of the company that I'm working for and asked them to find out who our competitors are and what the gap is that we could potentially fill. And it didn't take that much time. Of course, I have to do my own research to validate things, but it gave me a report, basically a whole report about what each company is doing, how they're performing online, the different blog posts, the different keywords that they possibly could be ranking for, how they do well on Google search. It was pretty cool. And then personally, I just got Claude Code, and I built an application to help me with my workouts. So I'm trying to lose 5 inches by August. And so this app,
you're not all that tall already.
I know. 5 inches width, not from the height. So this app,
lose the heels. That's a first start.
Right, the heels, yeah. But I like this app because I can input my reps and the weight that I'm using, and it will remember that. And then the next time I log in, it will challenge me. So you did this last week. Let's see if you can go to this weight this week. So that's what I like. I haven't seen that from other apps, so I decided to build it myself.
Very cool. Very cool. I like it. That's a lot of fun. I know you've been doing a lot of experimentation with the vibe coding tools and doing a lot of work around that. So that's a cool one. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. Let's see here. Let's jump over to. I see Nilesh is with us. Hey, Nilesh. Good morning.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm Nilesh. I'm the co-founder of Prodi AI. And what I'm really excited about and what has my attention is we're just launching a headless version of our entire application that works from within Claude. So we just tested it out in the morning. It works great. So happy to show it to anybody who's interested. And what Prodi is basically, it's a tool that's used specifically by product managers, product folks. So yeah, happy to talk more about it at a later point in time.
Cool. Can't wait to see it. I use Prodi on a weekly basis, even in my small, even in the small product coffee operation. So I'm really looking forward to checking that out. So cool. Welcome back. Good to see you. All right. Let's see who's up next. Oh, I see Mike Jankowski. Hey, Mike, how are you? Welcome back.
Hey, it's great to see everyone.
You and Nilesh are looking out the same window, I think.
We are same place. No, it's great to be here, great to connect. And what I'm excited about is David Dean's talk. He didn't pay me to say that, but David Dean was at Product Camp Phoenix, and I was busy with the admin team organizing, so I actually didn't get to attend many talks, so I didn't get to see David. So I'm looking forward to that. And David, I know in real life, I think you live just down the road from me. So after this, we'll have to catch up, grab some salad, and go and further the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, excited to be here. Great to see everyone.
Very cool. Good morning. Let's see, we've got a few more minutes. Let's do a few more. Russell Miller, hey, how are you?
Hola, how are you all?
Doing well. What's got your attention this morning? Tell everybody who you are and where you're from and all the good stuff.
Sure. My name is Russell Miller. I live in a suburb of Atlanta called Kennesaw. I'm a trainer. I train people in product delivery. And there's not a good name, candidly, to train people for what I do. Scrum is the closest thing, but I care more about, are we getting the stuff we need to our customers, and are we able to figure out whether the thing we've delivered is acceptable? It doesn't mean end users, just some customers, to figure out if we're building something that works. I do training. I taught a class yesterday in artificial intelligence for product owners, which is, it's a good class. But as some of you know, the AI world is changing about every 13 seconds. So it's still a good class, please. And I've got a meetup scheduled for tomorrow. I dropped the link in there. If you're creating presentations on your own, you probably have more valuable things you can spend your time on. So holler at me if you need some help, have questions about delivery, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to introduce myself.
You bet. Welcome. And we're going to have you in the studio here in a few weeks. We were going to have Russell in here as the co-host today, but the way the session worked out, we gave him the week off, and we're going to have him back in a few weeks to sit here in the studio with me and hang out and drink a lot of coffee and talk to people.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
And if you're interested in being a co-host on Product Coffee, literally being part of the show, like one of the co-hosts, if you're an insiders member of Product Coffee, just go to the general channel in Slack, and there is a pinned post at the top of the Slack channel where you can sign up on the schedule to co-host with me. And it's really a low lift. It's just a lot of fun helping to make sure that everybody has a great experience. You don't have to have any experience in doing podcasting or hosting or anything like that. You'll learn as you go, and it's a lot of fun. Would love to have you be a part of it. But you got to be an insiders member for that. So next up, let's see who. Oh, I see. We got Josh McNamee. Hey, Josh, welcome. How are you?
Doing good, Jason. Doing good. So for those I haven't met, Josh McNamee. Yes, you see Josh Mac. People just know me by that name. A little easier to say my last name. Been in product for 12 years. Largely that IC, a couple of rounds of leadership roles, but yeah, I'm one of those striving to be the super IC, if you will. Things I'm thinking about right now is I actually start a new job on Monday. I'll share more on that a little bit later, but super excited. It's in a large media space and working on some fun AI content tools and things like that. What has my attention? Man. Cleaning up from the madness of the job search and taking some time to catch a breath, but also building out kind of some placeholders and templates for when I kick off this new role, specifically around a team OS, team operating system. That's one of the things they want me to help with, is building out some new lightweight MVP, minimum viable processes to help kind of accelerate some of the team. One of those is a team OS, and how can the team can leverage, say, Claude Code together with a shared brain. And so kind of working on some early workings of structuring all of that. So
Cool. I'm guessing today's session will be highly relevant to you then, just kind of based on the things that David is talking about in his book and the thinking that brought him here. So hope you'll enjoy that. Congratulations on the new role. Love to celebrate those with you. And hope we hope you don't lose all the time that you get to spend with us, and you can still hang out with us.
100%.
All right.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
I actually have something to share that's completely separate from the book that I think a lot of the audience members would have an interest. So as I was working on the book, I connected with another author, who was publishing his book at the same time. And we've been kind of helping each other around this. And his book has had a ton of success on Amazon. And it's right down the alley for a lot of what product managers are looking for on some of the content. And it's called Connecting Goals, Impacts, and Outcomes by Claude Hanart. And it's been on number 1 on the Amazon list for a while now. And I'm working with him on developing a Claude co-work plugin that directly relates to all of the practices that he outlined in his book. So people can utilize as a part of it. So I would encourage you to check it out. It's an awesome book out there.
Awesome.
David, is that a Claude making a Claude? Did I pick that up correctly?
Well, it's technically, yeah, Claude's making a Claude, but he's asking David to help out with that. So
okay.
That's cool.
I have a dear friend, her son has a middle name of Claude, and he doesn't like to share it. And I'm like, but you have no idea how cool you're about to be. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a chance to post a link if someone else doesn't. But yeah, it's an awesome book, and he's also published a follow-up, smaller book called Garbage Faster, I think it is, like as a follow-up as a part of that. So
I think we might like that book too here.
Uh-huh.
There's several folks that feel that same sentiment.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where Steve is today.
He's here.
Oh, is he?
Lurking.
Oh, there he is. Yep. Make bad stuff faster.
There you
Indeed.
Good morning. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I am going to hand over the reins to my co-host, Allison, in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to take just a quick moment to thank all of our sponsors. Especially today, we want to give a shout out to Career Whisperer. And if you're an executive in transition, if you're looking, or even if you're not in transition, if you'd like to be looking for your next role, and you're thinking about how to navigate the market that has evolved in such strange ways over the last few years, Career Whisperer has a program that you definitely want to find out about. You can check them out. The link is in the chat there at careerwhisperer.co. And our good friend Josh McAfee, not to be confused with McNamee, Josh McAfee has spent 30 years in recruiting and executive placement. He understands not only the market as it existed 10 years ago, but as it has dynamically evolved, and is bringing that understanding to help executives and senior contributors find the perfect opportunity for them to actually maximize the value that they create for others. And I can't recommend the program enough. Would love to check it out. And if you'd like me to introduce you to Josh or anybody on the Career Whisperer team, just reach out to me and I'll make that connection. But you can head over to careerwhisperer.co and check it out. And give thanks to all of our sponsors. This weekly program wouldn't be possible without them. All we ask you to do is look at their links in the chat below, in the chat message there. Follow them, get to know them, so that if you have an opportunity to make an introduction or make a connection, or even give them a chance to compete for your attention or your business, give them that chance to compete. just to thank them for supporting your community. All right. And if this is your first time at Product Coffee, and I see we've got a couple of first time folks here, one of the things that we do is we don't just take notes for ourselves. We have a community notes document at productcoffee.com/notes. It's a Google Doc that you can star and save to your own drive, and we'll be dropping resources in there and notes throughout the day. But really, when I say we, this is a community meetup, and this is one of the ways we work together as a community to build a knowledge base around the things that we talk about today. So drop your links, drop your notes right there into the document, and drop your LinkedIn profile in there if you help out so that we can thank you for helping out with the notes document as well. All right. With that being said, today we are talking with David Dean, and our own librarian, Allison Herbert, is going to take over and tell us first before we get started on the session. Allison, why don't you tell us a little bit about book club and what we've got going on?
Hey, Jason, thanks so much. And so, I like to call it the big stage, and I'm so glad that we have the big stage today here with book club. We are in our 4th year, which feels amazing to say that this has been going strong for 4 years. But we started as a small group of folks within the Product Coffee community who just like to read. It still holds true. We also just like to talk sometimes too, as good product folk do. So, book club exists because of this community, and we hold the space for folks to read 3 or 4 books a year, depends on our cadence and what has our attention. And it's about bringing together folks to not only read, but also discuss what did you read? Because, right, I can read anything, or I can read anything through these earbuds. But to retain it and practice it takes conversation and takes articulating what mattered, what got your attention, what was curious, what did you learn? And so that's really great to see that happening in our community. We've read bunches of different books. We've read strategy books. We've read discovery books. We've read customer books. We're just finishing up our latest read with our own Steve Johnson, Customer Conversations, and our cadence is about every other week. We've had a couple of smaller books at the beginning of this year, and so we've gone through those pretty quickly. And so our next session for book club is going to be this Friday for wrapping up our customer conversations discussion. I'd encourage you, if you're interested, to join us over at productcoffee.com/book club. The link is in the chat. And you can sign up to get in on our emails, get in on those conversations, and the invite will get added to your calendar. It's free for everybody, so you don't need to buy the book or read the book to be there, but we'd also love to have you for the conversation. It's extra credit if you'd read and can add to the conversation. And there's a good chance that if you're on this call today, you can contribute. I have gone through, as I do when I start talking, a lot about the book club itself. I see a lot of familiar faces from our book club community in the call today, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What's something that you enjoy about book club? I'd love to have that resonate as well when we think about it. I can sit here and talk about it all day, but right, unlike Fight Club. Look, I knew it was going to show up, Jason. We were talking about it earlier. So really glad to have your thoughts and sentiments and maybe an opportunity to connect other people's ideas. Let's get started with the book itself. I'd love to pose a question to the audience, and I have a poll that I'd like to share. We're going through chats here. There we go. All right, so the chat is up. There's a poll that should have popped on your screen. I'd love to get your answer. We'll give it a few minutes to get folks in there and answering. The question is, when AI was introduced to your team or organization, which best describes what actually happened? Hopefully get some, no, there's some good answers. Okay, fantastic. David, can you see the poll? So you can see the answers.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So as you might expect, it depends and it varies, but we're seeing a good bit of folks answering confusion. That's not a surprise here. I think we're all kind of stumbling through. What does this mean? How does this affect my work? I know that I have been working with AI for at least the last 2 years, if not almost 3. In the last 2 months, I would say the amount of information that has hit me and come across my feed and across my attention has perhaps quadrupled. And I don't even know how I can even hold some of the information anymore. So I can feel the confusion point there. A lot of other folks are answering things like it got mostly ignored or worked around. And I think that's another thing that shows up, that skeptic or avoidance piece. And I think one of the things that came through, so with this book, and the reason why we've selected it is it gives us a path to avoiding or addressing, not avoiding, addressing all of those. So I'd like to get us started with a bit about the book itself. So it is called An Inbox Between Us. AI is on the front, and it is in the book, as David mentioned, but it's not the goal of the conversation. It's really about talking through judgment and where judgment actually lies, and where we as humans have the most opportunity to connect with the work when we're being asked to add AI into our work, add AI into our team, maybe even have AI as a team member. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here so we have that information. Cool. Thank you for that. David, thank you so much for being here today. I know we were connecting before this session, and certainly, as some of you may know, we met at Product Camp Phoenix. We had an infamous elevator story. We got stuck on an elevator together. So the elevator pitch for your book was something that caught my attention. I'd love to hear in your own words what you think is something that organizations misunderstand about their own work. And maybe some ideas for what motivated you to write this book. I know you were talking about it a little bit at the top, but I'd love to maybe restart that again and say, what motivated you to write this book?
So what motivated to write me was I've had the opportunity, I'm from a product management standpoint, I'm more of a not a B2B, with it. I would say like I'm more of like, directly to the end user as a part of it, because I worked for large organizations and I acted like a consultant inside of organizations around solving internal business problems with it. But I spent most of my career staying in the productivity space, how ultimately everyone behaves and around these different types of things. And I moved positions and moved into, I was in security and infrastructure and support very early in my career, moved into architecture, security architecture, moved into solution development around that. But I was always still close to frontline workers working in that organic ecosystem regularly. And as I moved into solution development, I had the opportunity to build, design, and support like thousands of solutions at this point in my career. And it gave me a unique perspective around this. And as I moved into, as AI became more prevalent and trying to introduce AI to an ecosystem, especially large company wide, it's complicated with it. And so as I was writing my own journals around like, how am I going to explain these things to people and around it? And I'm like, well, I'm overthinking it, to a certain degree. What I came to the conclusion initially as I was crafting these journals together was, if AI is here to mimic human behavior, then make it human. So the only way to make it human is to relate to how we behave as humans with it. And so I took that literally, excuse me. And so what does it mean? I have years experience understanding how everyone behaves in a company, in internal collaboration, communication around the organic data that everyone's doing relating to it, enterprise systems with this. So I was like, I'm going to work with that. I'm going to try and explain that. But I need to explain it to myself, as a part of this. So a lot of times, as I said, I was writing these journals to explain it to myself so I can explain it to other people when I did consulting around it. And then it just kind of morphed into something where I was like, there's something cohesive here. There's a story to tell here. And there's a lot of great people out there that talk about the opportunity of AI in many different ways. So there's a lot of enthusiasts. There's a lot of people who are anti-AI out there, and they communicate that as a part of this with it. But most of the people out there are talking at a really high level, or they're talking to an executive audience, with it. And it came down to intent, with it. The intent is from a downstream standpoint, I'm going to sell something, as a part, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is with a lot of this messaging that's coming out, 79% of the workforce is what I call an AI survivalist. They are just here to do their jobs. They're being thrown into this situation and no one's writing for them. And I wanted to reach out to them and make it real, for this. And I think the interesting factor is that I've been on several calls with people in the workforce that are in tears because they are afraid that they're not going to have a job a year from now with it, and around some of these things. And I'm like, and I read around a lot of comments out there as a part of this. People are asking for, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? Like, AI is coming into my workplace. How am I going to change? And there's a lot of change management adoption techniques out there, and that's great and that's amazing. But people are still not in the right frame of mind and mindset around this. And so I wanted to reach out to them. This book is not about me, and in all honesty, I don't even care about selling the book. It's just an opportunity to kind of centralize around a message. What matters to me is the message. And I want to not necessarily be an influencer, out there. I want to help influence, and I want to reach out to that audience that's there to basically get them educated, make it real, and as well as some of the downstream audiences to say, this is why people are important. This is why you value people in the workplace. But AI is now coming into this workplace, and it's a relationship that you have to define. And relationships take time, with it. And this is how you need to think about it.
Yeah, that's great, David. So,
Allison,
I appreciate.
I see
Sorry.
we got Russell's got his hand up. You want to jump in here real quick? You have a question or comment, Russell?
Yeah, quick question. For my benefit and maybe for others, would you, I was focused on you. Who are you trying to please again? I'm supporting you, but help explain the people that you're obviously leaders who might hire you, if I can be blunt, but who else are you trying to serve? Because I'm in the same ballpark, David, so I'm interested.
Yeah, so it's the everyday leader and the everyday user. So, and a lot of times what that means is kind of those frontline people. It's like, here's AI, go figure it out, type of thing. And they're like, what does this mean, for it? And I kind of classify it into 4 categories. I kind of more recently did this because I got asked the question: is you have the AI power users, like totally for AI, nothing wrong with that and that type of thing. You have the AI replacers who think that they can replace people as a part of that. You have the AI haters that are out there, completely anti-AI, no matter what, with it. And then you have everyone else, which is the majority of everyone out there with it. That's who I'm speaking to, and that's who I'm trying to reach and make it real for.
For sharing that, David. And Russell, that was a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that, we're talking about a tough topic. A lot of folks are somewhere on that scale and spectrum that you just outlined, David, right? I've
Mm-hmm.
actually vacillated between several of those myself just in the short time that I've been working with AI. So I think what I heard while you were talking is the humans in this. And so,
Mm-hmm.
right, the humans are who you're writing this for. You're not writing for a way to sell them on using AI.
Mm-hmm.
But you are saying, here's how we can be working with this technology, this tool together, rather
Mm-hmm.
than running away from it, rather than ignoring it, rather than dismissing it, rather than thinking it will solve all of your problems. I think if we ask the folks here, maybe you've got something in the chat, but when was the last time you asked the AI to do something and it said, sure, here you go, and then it was not the outcome that you were looking for, or maybe even led you down a dirty rabbit hole where you burned a bunch of tokens and maybe created some chaos for yourself. We've all had a lesson or two learned in that experience. I'm going to move us along here. And so one of the pieces that stands out in this book is that AI makes the absence of judgment visible. That's something you expose pretty early on in the book. But that visibility isn't free. And so it surfaces how work really gets done and can punish the people doing the quiet workarounds. I will admit I'm ahead in reading, but I'm still in reading in the book. And so trying to understand from your perspective, those quiet workarounds, when does making that stuff visible actually hurt the people and the books matter? Sorry, when does making this work visible hurt the people the book say that matters most?
What work? Help me out. I'm the slow one. What work
No,
are we talking
Russell,
about?
I'm here for it. I appreciate you. So when we think about the invisible work, so right, we're asking to make it visible. The invisible work itself, who does it hurt when we're trying to make it visible?
Yeah, let me kind of get started on what I mean by that, like foundationally. And this is kind of the core aspect of the book. And and what I talk about is that in a workplace, there are two official versions of work, and what I call the written contract and the unwritten contract. The written contract is things like our job descriptions, things like our company values, presentations, internet, like published things that are out there that tell the story on how we work as a business, with it. And that is initially all presented out there, and a lot of the information that's put together, especially moving up to the chain, being published out there, this is how it's perceived on how we do work. Then I talk about the unwritten contract, which is how it actually happens with it. Because as I don't need to explain this to product managers with it, but as you look at a process and design a solution for a process, there's the core step of that, usually well known on how that core step is. What is not well known is all of the downstream steps and behaviors that need to happen in order to make that core step happen. And so what I call that is the unwritten contract. As a part of that is, if you want to think from a job description standpoint, it's that other duties apply at the very bottom of the. So I like to say the job description
very
is
heavy
20%.
part of a job description.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah.
absolutely. So so this is how the job gets done, with it, and there's a lot of different dynamics with it. And they work through all those issues and problems and challenges relating to that. And ultimately, one of the major points in the book I talk about, this is ultimately why we hire people. We don't hire people to do the step-by-step process. We documented people to deal with the undocumented process, essentially, with it. And as I was writing this book, I felt like I needed to remind everyone that. Because a lot of people forget that, even personally. They forget all these undocumented behaviors that they do every day with this. And most of that undocumented behavior is all in a spot what I call the inbox, because it is captured. And so when you are designing a process and you're looking at all the official documentation and interviewing, a lot of times people talk about the official process, but not necessarily the unofficial process. They do sometimes as a part of this, but a lot of times there's things like ways of thinking, what what your lived experience is, all those different types of things. Those are all factors of that. Well, as I was explaining, thinking about AI as a part of this, and the opportunity of AI, I started doing some exploratory work with this around this undocumented behavior. And what I came up with is this term, what I call the inbox, because everyone relates to email, and email will be around 50 years from now of some form or fashion with it, but everyone can relate to the email. It's a centralized location of how we communicate and collaborate within the workplace with it. And so what I call about the inbox as a metaphor is that it's the behavioral record on how that unwritten contract works in your organization. It's a highway of information. And all of our undocumented processes are documented there. So you think when you're working through an issue or a problem, you're emailing people back and forth. When you're talking about issues and problems or opportunities, meeting transcripts, you're doing all that in instant messaging and all that kind of stuff. All of those behavioral dynamics, the good and the bad, are all documented in the inbox as a part of this with it. And so I started wondering, what kind of answers can I get out of this here? And some people did some exploratory work, but I started going deeper as a part of this. And so things like, what is someone else telling me here? So I asked questions like, they're explaining this problem. So I asked AI, what do they mean by this? What are the insights around these different types of things? And then I started expanding on that. And it's like, hey, we have a business process problem going on right now. What does all of my email correspondence, instant messages, and meeting transcripts tell me about that process? And it's not just about the more physical signals. It's also about where's the psyche of everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
How are people perceiving all of this with it? And so what I get into, especially when I'm talking about a podcast as a part of this, and I can get in more detail a little bit later on in here, but the real value of AI from a front door is not building a tool out there. It's creating organizational self-awareness. And that's where the front door is, the opportunity is a part of that. But you don't trust it blindly, with it. It's able to get you enough signals to say there's something here. And then you are still a part of the equation of that.
Yeah. And I think that's really great to call that out, because the inbox piece, I was like, oh no, we're going to talk about emails, a whole book about email. No, it's actually the place where the work happens. And so the spaces between that you're really focusing on in this book, and really thinking about, like, when we bring new things into our work, what does that change? How does the calculus change with that process, or really the process outside of the process? Russell, I knew we were going to have your hand up for a lot of this, because this is a space that I know you navigate regularly. Let's what do you got for us?
So first, I'm going to compliment you, David. We've never met. I love the concept of your book. I was looking to find out whether I wanted to get it on, pay $18, not that it's a bad price, to buy it physically, or pay the cheaper price to get it in Kindle. But what I've seen, to amen you, is I've seen people try to implement technology projects that replace other technology projects, right? You got 6 different systems and they talk to each other. And so Stephen needs to get something from Meredith, who got something from Kim. But you can't just take the specifications and expect that to work. And this is especially true for those of you who ever dealt with mainframe applications. Your data was limited. So you put some codes in places where the code, it's not documented, and Meredith sees it and she says, oh, I know I need to do X, not documented anywhere. So this is a I don't know, for a single company, it's a multi-million-dollar problem. So David, go for it. You're doing awesome. That's the thing that people don't understand. And we'll see a cycle. People get laid off, and then we'll realize, oh, wow, things didn't work like I wanted. And then Stephen will go get a different job after he's laid them off.
Yeah. And to comment with what you just said, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, is that if you think AI is going to come in and save your company, to do this, you're just pushing the buck. But the difference is what does AI do? It industrializes human behavior. So if your human behavior is highly dysfunctional, you've just industrialized more dysfunction in your organization with it. So you need to make it real as a part of this with it. And one thing I really try as a part of this book is to kind of reel back some of these things. And it's like, why do humans matter? Why are they important to us in the workforce? Because I think a lot of these leaders out there forget that when they make some of these decisions out there. And it's because of, when something hits the fan, who's going to solve it? with it. It's all of that lived
Humans.
experience that's out there, and that's why we hire people.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Um, Glad to hear that, Russell, that it's resonating with you, and certainly just a reminder as well. Like we are going to start reading this book in a couple of weeks. I think that'll put us the middle of June, so you have plenty of time to go out and get your copy. Um, David, as you've been talking here and your motivation for where we bring AI in, what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody that's facing this challenge right now? Maybe just heard you say, oh no, I've just industrialized that dysfunction that I know sits in my organization. What's something that you would want to encourage them to look for either in this book or in the work that you've exposed with your journaling?
Yeah, so the reality that's out there, because as I said, I work with large companies, as a part of this, and what's being presented out there is not reality. Like of all the AI hype that's happening out there, it's only a small percentage, of companies that are really moving fast out there. Everyone's kind of in the same boat because the AI product aspect is still highly volatile out there. And it hasn't come to an equilibrium where things can be baselined for that everyday person with this. So there's still a ton of experimentation that's going on with it. But we have a lot of societal things that we have to solve. I'm not trying to solve that. My book is here to create insights to people for them to go find the answers to solve it, but they need to have the right mindset of this. I'm not the person that's going to solve this problem. All of you are, with it. And so as a part of this, we want to take a step back, and that's okay. Take a step back because it's important as a part of this, and especially around messaging. And the one thing that I talk about from an organizational standpoint is you look at the everyday person that's happening out there. They have a laundry list of, and all of you understand the concept of a backlog, have a backlog of all kinds of things that they never get to do. And because of that, we aren't able to help accelerate them or the workforce, or the company itself with it. So what if our message, our community around this is to say, hey, we value everything that you do for us every day. AI, we realize that we have challenges as an organization. We're going to utilize AI to understand that and self-discover, because what's important to us is to give the opportunity for you to be able to help us move forward. We need to help you breathe with it. So we want to utilize tools to take away some of these tasks and issues that are highly tedious, in there, because we value as an employee, because we hired you to be innovative. We hired you to help you bring the company forward as a part of this. That's why you matter as a part of this. And we want to create that opportunity because we've never really gotten the opportunity to do that because we throw all kinds of stuff at you and you're just trying to survive all of this as a part of this. Let us make that happen. And the only way to do that is you recognize you have a problem. Mm-hmm. Every organization has dysfunction no matter what. Yep. It comes down to the perception and lens of that with it. I'm not here to replace people. I'm here to create opportunity to help everyone grow. And then by helping everyone else grow, I'm going to help the company grow with this. And I was a people leader and I manage a team of developers as a part of this. And that's something I always told them. Like, it's not about me. It's about helping you be successful. I'm just a byproduct of that. Whatever success I have, I'm a byproduct of making you successful out there. And that's really needs to be the message with it, because what I talk about in the book forces this lens about authenticity. Companies don't have a choice in the matter of what AI can now discover. And so you as an organization and you as a leader need to be more authentic in the things that you do. So let's just re-baseline, work as a strategy as a part of this, and make it move forward.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. I like the idea of pulling on the authenticity, perhaps even the discernment, and right, that higher value work than just pushing the button and sending the thing into the world. I know a lot of us don't just push buttons, but sometimes we get stuck in parts of our work that isn't as glamorous as getting to think meaningfully about what change looks like at an organization. So that's great. I want to pull on a conversation that's happening in chat. Flint, I had an idea that you would probably pop this in. So great to think about that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you were thinking in the response you just added about the AI slowing you down for a long time before you can see benefits.
Yeah, well, I think what sparked me to say that was you saying that it's hard to you can't expect AI to come in and save the company, right? And you talked about dysfunction, but it's just also about that change management and even within software where I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI to make an impact. You've got this hill that you have to get over first of like how do I change our processes now? How do we keep people from running in different directions? Like you're empowering a lot of new tools. You've got product now empowered to do things now that engineering could do was they had to have engineering to do on their own. And so like it's with that shift, you've got to look at this as usually I'm going to solve this problem with AI is going to be a slower process than what you're doing right now. Seeing speed as the outcome is certainly a folly.
Yeah, it's a fool's exercise. I bet perhaps is even what we could say there. Go ahead. Sorry, David, were you going to say something?
No, yeah, I was agreeing with that, and that's what I talk about is that the opportunity to self-discover, out there is like don't use AI to like necessarily solve a business problem from the front door. Take that dynamic, learn about that dynamic, and what does that mean about us as a company? With this self-awareness, the companies that embrace self-awareness and truly own that kind of hidden layer of how they operate at work are going to be the most successful companies around AI in the long run because they're going to have an intimate understanding and knowledge of their workforce and their work dynamic and try to work forward in a way that's going to provide a lot of value.
Yeah. All right. I was flipping through the book this morning, and again, I'm still mid-read, maybe a further ahead than some of our guests in the audience today. But something I dog-eared because it stood out, and I want to pull it forward. I'm going to read from the book on our session here. It's just a paragraph, but the future of leadership in an AI-driven world won't be defined by who adopts the technology first. It will be defined by who creates cultures where visibility feels safe, where noticing patterns isn't punished, and where naming workarounds isn't seen as defiance, where admitting uncertainty doesn't cost credibility. Mic drop. And maybe again, I'm just a little excited about this book because of having the opportunity to read it early. But I think that's kind of pulling a nice thread between what everybody's resonating this morning. We know running at this full speed is exciting. It's intoxicating. We now have the capacity to build in places that we haven't been able to build before because it was longer, harder. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have a tool accessible to me. All of those walls are gone. And so it's really intoxicating to chase after them. And right, our leadership may even be encouraging us to chase after them from an innovation perspective. David, I'd love to hear. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to answer Carla's question.
Perfect.
And so the reality is that it's not me trying to sell to executives, with it. It's me trying to sell to the workforce and the everyday leader to communicate that to executives as a part of that. And because the only way to bring about change is volume. You have people that control the funding that's out there and they're making decisions around that with it. But as a culture, if we can bring a culture together for the everyday, there's more of us than there are of them, even though they have, a power of a lot of the decision making out there. But it's our job to be able to have self-realization, self-understanding, and be able to kind of explain this in a trickle-up effect as a collective to basically say, this is not going to work. We can't make this happen. This is why we value everyone that we do with it. They can still choose to ignore that, but I still call out is like, you're just going to cause more dysfunction and we're not going to be successful, out there as a part of this. And so let's take a step back and let's have the strategy out there to self-realize, then take advantage of AI. And, I was on a podcast with Peter McMahon, People Business, if you haven't got a chance, that just went live yesterday. And he's like, isn't this book just about discovery? And I'm like, absolutely. It is about discovery. And the problem is people don't necessarily want to put in the work to discover. They want to move fast with it. But you're going to spend more money and go through a lot of tumultuous times and dysfunctions if you just slow down and take that opportunity to self-discover and understand this relationship. And I call that a relationship because I don't necessarily call this out in other avenues, but I'll call it out here because there's a lot of hidden messages and meanings in this book. But the concept is that it's kind of a love triangle between the organization, the individual person in that organization, and AI. And that's what I talk about is imagine you have this three-way relationship and you're trying to understand this dynamic and how it works, with it. And those kinds of relationships are hard. They fail a lot of times. And so it requires authenticity, visibility, and communication in order to be able to be effective. So it's not an easy road because AI is, as I said, is mimic human behavior. And it's also the good and the bad. And it also comes down to intent. So you have to work out that relationship. And that's going to take time in order to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good call out. And I don't know if I needed a love triangle reference in this conversation, but here we are. Here we are.
Yeah.
We've done it. You just pulled on trust and relationship building. And that's not something that I think if you looked at the front of the book or even the title of the book that you'd be able to pull on easily. Is there something here that perhaps is a rediscovery of what that looks like? So we think about our traditional working relationships, perhaps even my responsibility to the organization, my responsibility to my team, my responsibility to my team members. Is there opportunities there that you think we maybe need to re-examine as part of this?
Absolutely. And I talk about this in the book as far as, conceptually and what that really means. I actually talk more about this. I have a newsletter on my LinkedIn. I call it the AI Mirror as a part of this. And I kind of explore more about what that means, as a part of this, like from a more of applied standpoint. But if you go into AI and you go into your inbox, so I have Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever, and I have it all connected into this communication collaboration data. Build a personality profile on me, based on my work dynamics, my behavioral record in it. What does that tell me? What kind of insights just initially? It could still be wrong because there are factors it doesn't have as a part of this, but what does that present to me? Then you kind of ask the question, how is that personality perceived by this other individual based on all the correspondence, the instant messages, the chat messages relating to that, with it. And then you start discovering these kind of dynamics because the opportunities to kind of self-discover how I interact with people, how I communicate with people in a way that you didn't initially. Like you have some inklings, but putting, some data to it and some potential facts to it, to kind of create some insight and signals. It's like, what? Maybe how can I communicate better from me to this other individual? I have to work with them, but we're having challenging times communicating. So what are some recommendations that we could approach, each other as a part of this conversation to work through these issues and problems with it? And as a leader, I'll give you an example of a real insight with it. You communicate and collaborate with your team regularly. So if I ask the question, how often do I communicate? And it's not just one question, it's usually a daisy chain of questions in order to be able to figure this insight out. But what you may find out is 90% of the time I communicate to this employee, and only 20% of the time I can communicate to that. So based on that, what does that tell me? How can that employee perceive me as a leader, especially based on the language they're using in our emails, chat messages, all that kind of stuff? How is that employee perceiving me? And I had no idea. I didn't even realize that I was doing this, or maybe I'm intentionally doing this as a part of it with it. And so with this behavioral record that's in there, there's all kinds of insights that are in there to provide all kinds of opportunities. It also can cause uncomfortable conversations as well in that dynamic. And it can be used in other ways that is not appropriate, in my opinion, with it. And because I can discover all kinds of things in this ecosystem when I start connecting dots. Because there's a tool out there that exists that does this, and it's existed for a long time. It's called e-discovery. Legal teams use it all the time. When I'm being sued, I need to do an investigation. I need to look at all the communication and collaboration data. What is said? What are the documents exchanged relating to all that kind of stuff to understand the story and what's happening when unfolding. When you connect those kinds of communication and collaboration data to AI, you have now just given an e-discovery tool to the everyday user. So the question is, from an authenticity standpoint, what are people going to discover that you're not ready for? Which drives a conversation around authenticity.
Yeah, that's I'm always just fascinated with where you go with these responses because I think I have an idea. And anybody that's ever done any interviewing, this is some live action fun right here because I'm like, I think this is where we're gonna go, but he's thrown me a curveball. What you were just speaking to is something that I think changed my mind about how I use AI. So I entered my Claude relationship late last year and spent probably the first month fighting with him. What you were just premising here with asking it, what does it see, and show me the mirror of who you think I am. I guarantee most of us, if you were to go prompt right now, whether you've done this work in setting up your about me or anything of that nature, the answer you'd get back is you probably have some really challenging thoughts around what it's going to give you. It doesn't see you clearly. It's missing an entire piece of it. You might even be showing up as a grade A turd and not realize it. And so I think it's a great way to think about that accountability practice that perhaps the tool itself can help leverage about your own work where you want to grow in your own blind spots. Relationship status, it's complicated, yes. So fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Is there something that maybe you pushed on the e-discovery piece, but also like where it shouldn't go? Is there something there that we maybe need to call out or maybe even pop the lid on here while we've got everybody gathered?
Yeah, so it comes down to intent. When you and this is the part that what I talk about companies are not ready for. I don't think executive leaders understand what I can learn about them in this ecosystem with it. And because initially you have things that are fragmented all over the place, and only certain people have privy to some of these insights around it. But you can now connect dots with it. And you don't need to even be 100% there because one thing I talk about this whole behavioral dynamic, there's also another system that you, as part of the equation, you yourself, all of your lived experiences, all of your lived consequence, everything that you know about this. You're seeing this pattern, and what does this mean? I'm taking that and putting it together, and I'm making a judgment call, relating to what that is. I'm still accountable of what I'm coming as a conclusion of this. But now fragments can now be connected because it's always been there. It's always been hidden in that behavioral record as a part of this. So it comes down to the question of intent when you have this understanding with it, because are you using this information to move forward and be positive and be helpful, or are you using this information to surveil or weaponize with it? And I'll talk about a real situation. There's someone that I know that their leader used AI against the behavioral record, weaponized it, and got them fired. It was completely inaccurate, but they changed just enough information based on what they discovered, and they never questioned it, as a part of that. That's a reality. Those things are happening today, in the workforce with it. And so that's why intent is critically important out there. And I actually wrote a newsletter article, what I call the observant climb, and it compares two people. Like, I want to get ahead. I want to be able to get at that leadership level. So what can I do? What kind of insights can I get from my leadership based on how they communicate, correspond, and as a part of this? And so I have person A, it's like, I want that top job, up to that. So I want you to I'm going to harvest all of this data, build an idea on ways how I need to talk in the language he specifically or she specifically wants at that level to sway his opinion so that I can get that job that I want to go for. Versus the other person is, I want to understand how leadership works better so that I can move into that naturally and gradually because I want to be a part of the team with it. I don't know how to speak as a leader at that level, so I'm going to use this as a tool to learn as a part of this. But it's the same behavior. It's the same AI process with it. It just comes down to lens and intent. So, and as we can see out in the AI world, there's a lot of great opportunities and there's a lot of horrible things that you can do with it. And so, but now what does that mean in the workforce? Now, what does that mean from a behavioral record with it? And that's when I talk about governance, to companies, it's 40% technical and 60% behavioral because AI, when it comes to governing security, you have a controlled set of inputs, you have a controlled set of outputs, things that you monitor and oversee. AI now introduces, I have an infinite number of inputs and an infinite number of outputs. You have to govern that in some way. And you govern that through, what is permitted, what is not permitted, and especially around this behavioral record.
Yeah. Thank you for unlocking a new fear. I didn't know that I was going to have that planned. But you're absolutely right. And I think, Flint, you called it out well, like, right? If only we could give this tool and make it accessible to people with pure of heart and mind there.
If only.
If only. I do think it's, right, pulling back to the human thread, it is like that human layer that's going to keep us on the straight and the narrow here. If we let the robots run amok, things will go poorly. If we give it to people that don't have construct about how to push and challenge the robot, we're going to have poorly designed experiences and things to be fearful of as we continue to work with this tool.
And I want to throw an idea out to product managers in here in this space. One thing I would encourage is if you're looking to build a team to design an AI solution out there, consider hiring an organizational therapist to be on staff, as a part of this, team, because the more you can understand the human psyche, around this and how they're going to behave, potentially around AI standpoint, they can create some insights out there that can change the way you may actually develop that AI solution. They're the ones who are the experts on these dynamics with it. For me, here's the difference with me. Like, I'm a small voice in this very large field out there, that's being communicated. But the difference between someone like myself and someone, a lot of people out there is I have proximity. And all these podcasts that I've been on so far, there's common things about this has been a breath of fresh air, like talking about this. Someone who is right there next to the everyday person and the everyday leader, understanding the stuff that they've been dealing with for years, and then applying AI to that. Like, this is what people need to hear and get more grounded around it. And so, but as I said, it's not about me. It's all about everyone else. And I value everything that everyone brings, to the workforce. And I want people to understand what that means and why they're valued, and so that they can be able to solve and communicate that out.
Yeah. Together, better together, and better together through, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, I didn't just count, but so we do rapid fire as part of some of these conversations. And
Sure.
I was going to challenge you to do that. But this book in 6 words or less is.
Um,
I won't count the ums.
m- uh, making it real about your workplace relationship.
Okay. That's good. I like that. There might be an extra word in there, but I think we'll let that one pass. We'll let it
Yeah.
go. You did a great on the rapid fire. I don't know
Sure.
that I've stumped somebody that long before, so I appreciate that. For those of you that are still on the call, and certainly appreciate the conversation this morning. This is your ticket for if you joined us free today. Let us know how this session was for you. What did you find interesting? What made it great or not so great? I'd love to hear about it. We only get better when we have feedback. So really appreciate the conversation today, David. For folks, just a friendly reminder, we're going to start reading this later this month. Something this book club doesn't normally do that we're going to do. We're going to read over the summer. So I'm going to challenge us all to do some summer reading, just like we did in grade school. Because I think it's that important that we be talking about these things, David. And I appreciate that you've brought these ideas and conversations to light in the form of a book. And we look forward to reading it with the group here. Any other questions or thoughts? I don't have the chat open in front of me, but certainly would love to have anybody come off of mute or chime in if there's something else you want to make sure we have time for questions for maybe a few more things before we wrap up here today.
Somebody wants to earn tokens to buy a pizza, so you'll see how important that is.
The summer reading program threw me back to going
Yes.
for that pizza party at the end of the day.
Okay, all right,
You know,
that's
I was
good. Thanks.
I was at the place that we have some of our car air conditioning work done the other day, and they actually have a sign on their counter that they give a 5% discount if you pay in Bitcoin. And I'm wondering when we're going to start seeing we'll take payment in tokens or tip me in tokens.
Right.
Mike, I'm gonna go find the old Book It program. I think is
That
perhaps
was it.
if you're old enough to know
Yeah.
that might be what we do our version of for summer camp. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right. Well,
I think
anyone else?
just a couple
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
follow-ups. So I do have an audiobook version coming out. It's going to come out in July. Unfortunately, it's not going to be done by the time you guys are reading the book and that type of thing. But I'm more than willing to send some snippets to the readers so they can get an idea of what that's going to sound like when that comes out. I'm also doing a cover update, relating to it. So you might see a new cover eventually come out relating to it. But I've been on a lot of podcasts out there and I have more coming. So I encourage you to also check some of those out because there's a lot of different insights and perceptions as a part of this as well.
Are you the one reading your book, your audiobook?
No,
No.
I'm not. As you can see, I say and a lot. This is something that I'm trying to work through personally. And it took a while to find a voice actor who I feel like is going to capture, how I hear myself as a part of this. And I think I found the guy. So
Great. I'm very picky about that because I listen to a lot of books and I know what's a good reader and what's not. You're
Yeah.
like, that is not good. Like
Yeah.
the one who's reading the one that has an octopus in it. I'm like, really? That's not what an octopus sounds like. Who are you?
Yeah.
Carla, I saw you mention, I know, and David, you did mention a few podcasts.
Mhm.
Where can folks find you if they want to engage with you or reach out on another topic?
Yeah, so my website, davidchristopherdean.com. I try to update that as much as I can. My LinkedIn is where I probably post the most on, and I also have my newsletter out there as well. So I encourage you guys to check that out. But connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Wow.
David.
Yes, thanks again, David. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic talking about the book itself. I actually was really curious how you were thinking about the product space in this, and I took some notes as you were talking with Jason at the top. So excited to think about that further with you. We will certainly have you all back or have you back as we wrap up the book. I know our audience, like I mentioned before with Fight Club, we don't mean to invoke violence, but we are a spicy bunch. So I suspect after we're through reading it, there may be some additional hot takes to share with you that we can get into and uncover those other opportunities for you to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Again, productcoffee.com/book club to get on the list, and we look forward to reading an inbox between us with you.
Thank you.